If you've always wondered how to make a Dresden plate block, I'm going to show you the easiest way to do that in today's video. Hi, I'm Kim Jamison Hurst of ChatterboxQuilts.com. I'm the creator of The Quilter's Way, an online quilt club where members learn and grow in a fun, supportive community. Now, before we get into today's topic, I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so you'll be notified the next time I release a new video. Now, I've got to admit, I've always put off making a Dresden plate because I thought it was really tough. And I found out it isn't if you have the right tools. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how I make a Dresden plate block really easily. And the reason it was so easy for me to do was because of the template I use. So I'm using this template. It's from Martelli, and it is their 12-inch Dresden flower template. So this one here will make up to a 12-inch blade. Okay, it's not a 12-inch plate altogether. It's a 12-inch blade. That's the length of the blade. And you can see that this template is marked off in half-inch increments. So there's 1 inch, 1.5, 2, etc. And so when I was trying to decide what size I wanted to make the blades, I actually cut out a piece from paper, and I decided that this is a pretty good size for me to use, and it's 6.5 inches. Now, I also had to figure out how many blades were going to be in the circle, or in the flower, if you will, or the plate, whatever you want to call it. And I found out that there are 12 blades. So the next thing I had to think about is, what fabrics do I want to use? Do I want to use 12 different fabrics? Do I want to use 2 fabrics and alternate them? What do I want to do? Well, I had some fat quarters I thought would be really cute to make in this design, so I actually chose 6 different fabrics, so I'll be making 2 blades out of each one. I also chose another fabric to make the circle in the center, because that's what I was going to put on this particular one. So now is when I get to have some fun with the template, because I'm actually going to cut. So I've layered up 3 pieces of fabric here. I've got a straight edge, and what I want to do is I want to take the 6.5 inch mark and line that up with that straight edge. Make sure it's nice and straight. And this has this no-slip material on the back of it. I should show you that actually. It's got this no-slip material on the back of it that locks it down into that fabric really nicely. You'll see that when I go to cut in just a second. Make sure I get this lined up properly here, not up on one side and down the other. This is probably the hardest part of the whole project for me anyway. Okay, so I'm going to cut. I'll just cut right off the edge there because I don't have very much fabric excess there. And I'm going to cut here. I'm in such a habit of closing the blade every time, I have to remember to open it again. I can always make the simplest things look complex. That's my gift. Okay, let's open it up again, and we'll cut again. All right, so cut so easily. Perfect cuts. All righty, so I've got 3 pieces of fabric here, and I've got 3 blades, right? We're not done with the blades yet, though. I've got to go to the sewing machine and sew them together, so I'm going to show you how to do that next. So I'm at the sewing machine now, and I want to make the blades, right? So what I'm going to do is I take one of the blades and I fold it in half, and you're matching the raw edges here. You can press, or sorry, I should say pin if you want to. I don't think you need to. And I usually start at the open end and stitch towards the fold. That way I don't get any distortion. So if I was sewing from the fold towards the open end, I might find that the top fabric's pushing out past the bottom one. Okay, so let's start with a 1/4 inch seam, and I've actually changed my seam length to 1.8. And you want to sew an accurate 1/4 inch seam, or as accurate as you can, okay? Now I'll take the next one. Look at this cute llama fabric. So cute. I love these fabrics. And last one. All right, now this is the last ones that I'm going to show you. Obviously, there are more blades than this in the top, but I don't think you want to sit and watch me do 12 blades altogether. So I'll just cut these off here. Okay, so Don't they look cute? All right. Now, we're going to do some other things with them. But right now what I want to do is I want to take off any extra bulk as much as I can. So I'm going over to the folded area and I'm just cutting off some of that. We don't need that in that area there. Just make sure you don't cut through your stitches. Let's hope I don't cut through my stitches. Oh, wouldn't be good, would it? Okay. Little tiny guys fly away into the garbage can. Okay, so the next thing, of course, would be to turn these inside out. So I'm going to go back to my cutting area to show you how I do that and how you get that nice sharp point on them. Now that we've stitched the blades together, we need to do some pressing. And I've got a little tip for you here too to make this work out really nicely. First, you're going to set your seams. And when you do that, you want to make sure that the raw edges are all lined up down that blade and press down a little ways down the blade, because that's going to give us a center registration line, and I'm going to show you why that's so important in just a second. You don't have to go all the way down the blade, but down a little ways. You know, maybe a little more than, maybe 2/3, a little more than halfway. Okay, I'm going to use my little llama here to demonstrate. This llama fabric is so cute. So what you want to do next is you want to turn this right side out. So I put my thumb in and my index finger and I push it out. Okay, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to give me a real pointy seam, or end I should say, not a seam. I don't want a pointy seam, I don't think. But we'll get to that in just a second. I'm using that purple thing. You can use different tools to do this, but I want to get as sharp a point as I can at the end there. Now I have to be careful, because if I'm too aggressive, I will actually poke this right through the fabric, which is probably not desirable. Okay, we get that out as well as I can. You can also use like a point. I think this is a point turner. You can do that. Same thing. Be careful you don't push it right through the end of the blade. You don't want to do that. And if you're working with some heavier fabrics, maybe you're working with wool or something a little thicker, sometimes a stiletto is helpful to get in there and just pull that point out. I don't really need that in this case, but it can be helpful. Okay, so let's say I've got that out where I want it. And I want to press this, and I want to make sure it's even. I don't want to be pressing it off to one side or the other. And that's where that pressing of the center registration line came in. That's actually what you were making, was the center registration line when you pressed down the blade. Okay, so I'm going to line up that seam with that pressed line there. And then I'm just going to press it down. And I can keep pressing down the blade because I don't need that center registration mark that we pressed in there before. So I'll just press down and get rid of that. I might have to do it on the other side as well. But you get what I'm doing. So there we go. So there's one of our little blades. Now, I need to do the same with the rest of them. And I actually have already pre-done a few blades. The rest of a half of the Dresden plate. So there they are. So I'm going to finish these two, get them ready to go. And then I'm going to show you how you start stitching these together at the sewing machine. Now the fun part starts. You get to start sewing these together, and it gives you a bit of an idea of what it's going to finally look like. So what you need to do is, first thing you need to do, figure out your layout of your blades, okay? So I've already done that, so I know which ones need to go together. That's kind of important. You don't want to get it done and you realize that you didn't like the fabrics you put next to each other. And then you're going to line up the fabrics. Now I'm trying to make sure that that little area where we went from the folded to the non-folded fabric, if you will, that's where I want to start stitching. And I'm making sure this is all lined up well, again, with that short stitch length. And I'm going to lock my seams when I first start here. I'm going to go in a bit, and then I'm going to reverse to lock my stitches. You don't have to go as fast as me, okay? This isn't a race. Now, as I get closer to the end, sometimes I might find that my edges are not going to lock up where I want them to, or match up, I should say. So I'm just going to place them there and hang on. All right, so first couple sewn together. Let's see what they look like. Now, I find it easier to sew a few couples together and then start putting those together rather than just starting at the beginning and sewing them all the way around. And the reason why is, I'll tell you a little secret. Sometimes the circle, when you get it all together, doesn't lie down exactly flat. Yes, it's true. It happened to me the first time I was doing this. And I realized that I was working with more of a scant 1/4 inch seam than a true 1/4 inch seam. So don't work with a scant, work with a true 1/4 inch seam, and then it'll all work out together. What I did there, because my stitching was a little, too close to the edge, a little, a stitch or two over is all it was, is I went back in and I just stitched a stitch or two on the other side. So in other words, I took up more fabric. So instead of like this, they were in a little bit more, and then it was perfect. So just a little hint there. So I've got my first couple together there. All right. So I do the same with the other ones, but I don't want to put you through watching me do that. So the next thing I'll do, of course, is to press. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to press these together. Now, this is one of the few times where I actually will press my seams open to avoid all this extra bulk that's going to be happening in here. So I set my seam, of course, as I always do. Set my thread down in there, and then I'm going to open this up, okay, and just finger press it down and put the iron on here. This is a little awkward for me. Usually I'd be standing up doing this. I like to stand iron rather than sitting, but I'm going to just get that down a little bit there and see how awkward that is for me. Let's try a different angle here. There we go. I'm not done yet. I just want them to lay down a bit. And then I'm going to put some of my the Easy Press solution on here with this applicator tip. Just picking up some of my thread I see. And I'm just going to kind of take that and put it down sort of through the center there. I want a little bit on one side, a little bit on the other side, just a light coating of that. And that's going to help it to lay down really nice and flat. Okay, I'm going to let that get itself into the fabric. You can see already it's lying down more. So I'm going to give it a few seconds just to lie down more. After I do that, I'm going to press it, but I'll be stitching these together again to finish up the couples. Not again, I guess I haven't stitched them yet, have I? Oh, I'm not as far ahead in this project as I thought I was. Okay, I'll be stitching those up, and then I'll show you how I'm going to keep joining them together. But now we're ready to put the iron down again, and we'll get this seam nice and flat. Give it a few seconds there. All right, so that's going down nice and flat. So you can see what it looks like. Oh, they look so nice when you put them together, don't they? They start looking really, really nice. So I'm going to do the next couple here. Again, you don't need to sit and watch me do this, but I'm going to put these together, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like when you start joining all the couples together. So meet me back here in just a minute, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I've got my couples sewn together, and now they're going to become quadruplets. So I'm going to put this together. Let's fold them over here. Again, trying to match up that little corner there and match them as they go down here. Sew along, making sure to lock my threads at the beginning. Make sure they match at the edge there. They pretty much should, but just let's make sure. Alright, let's see what these guys look like together. Hard to find my little, only one stitch there to cut. Alright, so the next thing I would need to do, of course I would press that open, is just to add the other one on, and then I've got a half. So I would make 2 halves, is what I would do, and then I would join them together to make the circle. So I'll show you how I do that. I gotta get this finished, and I already have another half pre-done just for you, and I'll show you how they come together then. So here are my 2 halves of my Dresden plate. And so the next step is, of course, to put them together. So you've actually got 2 seams you've got to do here, right? You've got this seam and the one on the other side. So pretty basic. Line them up again, nothing different than what you've already been doing. See if I can get these together here. You can always pin these too. If that makes it easier for you, feel free to pin. and I want to make sure this is going to join at the edge here well. There we go. Okay. So we're missing a seam. Now I'm going to sew this one together and then I'm going to press them both at the same time because that'll work out just fine. I'm always starting at the top here, as you notice. I'm always starting at the top. I'm not sewing from the bottom up. I'm sewing from the top down, or the outer edge, if you will, towards the inner part of the little plate here we're going to have. Okay. Get this started and then move it in a bit better. All right, let me get this lined up a bit better here. Start, there we go. Looks like we're going to be okay at the end here. All right, moment of truth. Let's see what this looks like. Ta-da! Looks nice, huh? Okay, remember we have a couple of seams we have to press now. And you'll be able to see those easily because they're the ones that aren't pressed open and they're not lying flat. So we'll set the seams on both of them. And then we'll open them up. Get them opened up here. And I'll just do one of them so I don't bore you too much with the pressing. Although the pressing is what makes these look really, really nice. Those nice flat seams, those nice sharp points at the end of the blades. Usually I'd let that sit longer, but again, I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I'll get that nice and flat, and I'll do the other side as well. But you can get an idea of what it's going to look like. It's going to look pretty nice. Okay, so I'll finish that up, and then I'm going to meet you back at the cutting station to show you what we're going to do next. So I've sewn both seams down and pressed them nice and flat, and so now we have a beautiful Dresden flower or Dresden plate. So I'll just show you what it looks like on the back side. We've got all these seams pressed nice and flat. Looks pretty nice, right? There's only one problem. It's got this hole in the middle. We need to do something about that. So we're going to have to get a little circle to fill in, and I'm going to show you how I do that. Just going to move this out of the way. So what I'm going to do is I need to have some fabric, obviously, to do this. So I've got a piece of fabric. I cut it, it's about 5 inches. I know that I need a circle that's about 3.5 inches in diameter to fill that hole in the center. So I've got my piece of fabric, and I've got a piece of fusible interfacing I just cut out. It's about 5 inches as well. It's the one that's got the little glue dots. You can feel the little bumps. Those are the glue dots, and we're going to talk about where you want those to be in just a minute. And I'm using a little Martelli template. Aren't they cute? It's a no-slip circle template. This is a 3.5 inch size. So I fold my fabric into quarters, and then I put the little template this way so each edge is matching up. So it's on the fold of the fabric. This is all open here, as you can see. And I'm using a smaller rotary cutter. This is a 28mm rotary cutter that I'm using to cut this out here. And I'll show you how I do that. I'm going to go back towards me and then just push away. Okay, you just have to kind of do a little bit as you go along because it's kind of hard to cut, rounded shapes, right? But this is not too bad. I can always go back and just do a little bit of trimming if I need to. Okay, and then I need to lock this down. Okay, and I'll show you what this looks like. This is the fabric circle. So there you go. Not too bad at all. Okay. Put that aside, and I need to do the same thing with the fusible interfacing. It doesn't matter which way I, whether I put the bumps in the middle or on the outside, or the center, I should say, or the outside. And I don't have to be overly fussy, getting it to fold up properly, because I really need to just be careful that the folded edges are working well, that they're folded together nice and flat. Okay, put this down. And if this is a little bit smaller than the fabric, it doesn't matter. You have to get used to, I'm not used to this mechanism to unlock this. I'm used to the 45 millimeter blade. Here we go again. Same thing, I'll just do a little bit of cut as we go along. And if we need to do any trimming, I can do some little trimming. All right, so let's lock that blade down again. And there's my little fabric circle. Okay, now what am I going to do with these? Well, what I'm going to do with them is I'm going to put them together. And the one thing when you're working with a fusible interfacing at this point in time is you want to keep it away from the iron. Don't put it near the iron, okay? You're going to take the glue dot side, you're going to put it down against the right side of the fabric, and you're going to line these up as best you can. Okay, and the next thing you're going to do is you're going to sew them together. Okay, you may have seen this technique before. If not, it works really well. So you want to put them together, and you're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam. Here we go. So I'm not locking my seams when I start, my stitches I should say, when I start, because I'm going to go over them again at the end. So we're going to go along. Okay, and you want to take your time doing this, because you're going to have to pivot your fabric quite a bit to get a nice even circle. It's probably about maybe 3 stitches, and then you have to pivot ever so slightly, maybe 4 stitches. This is where the automatic presser foot lifter on this machine comes in really handy. And now I'm almost back to the beginning again. And I'll just lock off my stitches. All right, so there's our little circle. So the next thing we need to do is we need to pull the interfacing away from the fabric. It's hard to get a hold of it sometimes. Give it a little pull there and pull it away. Don't pull it too hard, you don't want to tear it off. And what you want to do is you want to cut a little hole in the middle of it, a little slit. Not too big, but big enough that you can turn this outside. So I'm going to go one way and one the other way. And then I want to turn my circle inside out, right side out really. Because what this is going to give you is a circle that has a nice finished edge on it already. So just take your time, pull it out. Okay, it's looking circle-ish. And you can use something like that purple thing to go in. You can use the kind of square edge if you want to just kind of push out gently all around the edges, okay? And so what you're going to get at the end of that, when you finish that, is a little circle that looks sort of like this, and it's going to be able to fit in the center of the Dresden, and it's got the fusible glue dots on the outside now, so you're going to be able to press that down with your iron and set it to your background. All right, so we've got the circle is done, the flower, the plate, whatever you want to call it. The center little circle is ready to be put into place. All right, we're missing a background, right? We need a background. So meet me back at the cutting table. I'm going to show you how to get this onto your background. So here's what my Dresden plate is looking like, okay? Got all the fans done, we've got the center done, but nothing's put onto a background yet. So I want to talk about the background. I'm using an 18-inch square here, okay? But you can use whatever size looks good to you. I just kind of eyeballed this. I figured that the space around here looks good. And if I wanted to put this into a quilt or a bigger project, that is probably a good size to use for this size of plate. If you wanted this just to be a wall hanging, you might want a bit bigger background. Or if you want to do a lot of quilting, you might want to be a little bit bigger. You could actually take this and actually, just border it, and it'd make a nice wall hanging. But we need to get it onto the background. So whatever size background you want to use, like I said, for this one where the blades are 6.5 inches unfinished, I used an 18-inch background, and I think it looks pretty good. but I need to get it down the background. We need to get the circle in the center down too, right? So first thing you want to decide is, how do you want to put your Dresden on the background? Where is it going to be on the background? Where do you want these to be? Okay, maybe I overthink things a little bit, but in any case, I'm just going to say I like it like this. We've got these two, north and south, top and bottom, and we've got the llamas out to the side. I can fold this into 4 to give me registration marks to put it down, or I can just kind of eyeball it. I find when I eyeball things, it works out pretty much the same anyway. So whatever you want to do there, great. So now I need to get this down to my background fabric. And so I'm using this Seam-Align glue. This is from Acorn Precision Piecing Products. And it's just a product where I can take it and put it on the ends of the blades and probably in between as well. And it's heat activated. So I'll just put a little bit on here and a little bit there, a little bit here. Okay, and I can push it down. And then I need to put the iron to it to get it to set up. And so what it's going to do is it's actually going to, it's a temporary, I want to close this off here so it doesn't dry out. There we go. It's a temporary adhesive, if you will, a temporary glue. And the nice thing about this product is it'll adhere this to the background. But if for some reason I don't like how my Dresden's arranged, let's say, I will be able to take it off that background easily. It'll let the fabric peel back off again. So it's not like fusible web where you can't really pull it back off. It'll keep that down there. So, and if I do want to pull it off, I can pull it off a little bit if I want, and it comes away fairly easily. Okay, so I'd have to reapply it to get it to stay down there, but these guys they're stuck down there. You can see I don't want to pull at them because I'll just pull them off. So they're stuck down. So I'll do that all the way around. That'll keep it down on the background really nice. Now, I have one more guy that I need to do something with. Now, remember, we made this with the fusible interfacing, so I don't need to put the Seam-Align on it. I just need to get it set up the way I want it to. I try not to fuss too much with things, but I always overfuss. And I'm just going to have to press it down, and that'll set it down. So I just want to make sure that all my edges, those raw open edges, are covered. So I just need to move it around a little bit, fuss with it a little bit, make sure it's covering everything. Come down there a little bit. And I think that should just about do. Sometimes if you need, it'll fit better one way. It's not a perfect circle. It's as perfect as I can get it. But it's not perfect. And then you need to put this down. Now, I may need to put a wet cloth down on there because this is a dry iron. I'm not sure this might be heat activated with steam, as a lot of them are. But let's give it a shot and see how it does. Yeah, I think I need a little bit of steam. So I can just give this a spritz of water, or I can get a damp cloth and just put it on, and that'll heat activate it, and it'll set it better. It's setting a bit, but not as easily as if it had that steam. But you can see it's going to cover all those edges. So that's looking good. So at this point in time, the only thing you need to do is finish the edges, okay? To get them permanently, you want to get that plate permanently adhered to the background, okay? The seam line is just a temporary measure, okay? So what you can do is anything you want. You could do a blanket stitch all the way around, and don't forget your center circle. You'll need to do that as well. So you could do a blanket stitch in either a matching or contrasting color. You could do just a narrow zigzag stitch so you don't see it very much. You could actually use some simple decorative stitches to go around as well. Whatever you want to do, that's your choice. And then you've got your Dresden plate, and it's ready to go into a project or be a wall hang, whatever you want to do with it. So if you haven't tried making a Dresden plate yet, you might want to, because it's not as hard as you might think it is. Thanks for watching today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and be sure to share it with your quilting friends. And if you want more helpful quilting information, why not go to my website, chatterboxquilts.com.